Hi, welcome back to the Progressive Front. My name is Trish. Recently, Trump has stepped up his attack on the EPA by trying to dismantle the Waters of the United States rule, an anti-pollution regulation set in motion by Obama. Trump's attack on the EPA can and will be detrimental to both the environment and our health. Let's roll the clock back to the 1950s. American industry was booming, and so was the population. After World War II, industrial jobs were plentiful and real estate was remarkably affordable. So Americans were assured that they could raise a family even if only one parent worked full-time. These times were idyllic, a golden age for middle and upper-class Americans at least. Is this the time period Donald Trump is referring to when he says he wants to make America great again? Pushing all this prosperity is technological innovation. New materials like plastic and asbestos made consumer products cheaper and easier to consume. Let's take a look at Love Canal, New York, a beautiful and ideal location to raise a family near Niagara Falls. Many of those living there during the 1950s worked at plants like Hooker Chemicals or Occidental Chemical, making everything from cosmetics to siding for homes. There was no need to regulate for environmental and consumer health standards because we could trust the free market to take care of companies who polluted the environment or endangered the health of their employees, right? They'd never put innocent lives at risk just to make a profit, right? Right?
Just east of Niagara Falls in northwest New York State, an area with the deceptively serene name of Love Canal turned out to be one of America's most notorious toxic waste horror stories. An inadequate cover on a chemical company's dump site allowed a deadly brew of toxins to leak into a suburban neighborhood. A public health scare erupted.
Can you make decisions? Are you going to live there with your wife? Are you going to put your kids there?
Over 900 families left their homes. Several years and hundreds of millions of dollars had to be spent to try to stop the further spread of the contaminants.
We know now asbestos, the same stuff used in constructing those buildings in Love Canal, contained dangerous carcinogens. To make matters worse, Hooker Chemical also used the site to dump waste until 1953, and then just covered the area up with dirt and built homes over top. Did we discover the toxicity of these products because the chemical plants in Love Canal funded studies and found life-threatening problems? No. It was thanks to tree huggers and their pesky meddling. The Environmental Protection Agency was founded in 1970 in order to help protect people and the environment from chemical contamination and industrial pollution. The EPA took great interest in Love Canal, New York in the late 70s when there was an unusual amount of miscarriages and birth defects reported by residents. When examined further, the locals were found to have higher than average white blood cell counts and chromosomal damage. Up until this point, the federal government had taken a hands-off approach to environmental regulation, allowing the market to dictate how waste could be disposed of. This kind of carelessness is exactly the same behavior that Scott Pruitt, our new head of the EPA, would like to enact. Pruitt himself has sued the EPA 14 times while Attorney General of Oklahoma. What's more, in recently uncovered emails, Pruitt is revealed to be arm in arm with serial polluters of the fossil fuel industry. Matt Ball, executive at Americans for Prosperity, has said, "Thank you to your respective bosses and all they are doing to push back against President Obama's EPA and its access with liberal environmental groups." Pruitt himself has stated that he's the leading advocate against the EPA's activist agenda. There is no reason this man should run an agency designed to protect the environment who happens to be the same man that is working against it. Not to mention how much the Trump administration has been pushing the denial of climate change despite all the data backed by 99% of the world's scientists. It's also important to note the pushback on the EPA doesn't stop with Pruitt. A recent bill introduced by Congressman Matt Gaetz has called for dismantling the EPA. The Koch brothers, the energy sector, along with the GOP, have launched a full-on assault against the environment. Prior to Trump taking office, the U.S. Geological Survey released a report stating that up to 7 million Americans are at risk from fracking-related earthquakes. This data has now been removed from the USGS website. At the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and University of the Pacific, researchers found that there are a number of chemicals, like corrosion inhibitors and biocides in particular, that are being used in reasonably high concentrations that could potentially have adverse effects. Information which Pruitt and others linked to the fossil fuel industry have fought against getting out. Despite claims of overreach and overregulation, the industry is largely unregulated. Not to mention, fracking fluid isn't always evacuated from dig sites, which can in some ways leak into the water table and poison the drinking water. Speaking of drinking water, Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water, and toxins have now been found in the water in Chicago. And if the GOP continued to gripe about overreach, make sure to remind them that it was Nixon who started the EPA to begin with. It is vitally important that water, air, and the environment in general stay protected. If only there were an agency dedicated to studying the environment and informing citizens of potential contamination. Contacting your member of Congress does work. When Utah Representative Jason Chaffetz put forth a bill to sell public land, conservatives and liberals contacted him with their objections about how the land should be used, and then he backed off. Raising awareness, contacting your representatives, and showing up to protest at town halls can and will work. Find your state senators and contact them through email or phone. Show up to city council meetings and tell them how important it is that your city, county, and park not turn into Love Canal by keeping the EPA. And before we go, we at the Progressive Front would like to say that we stand with the water protectors at Standing Rock. They are the front line of environmental protection. When you are reaching out, please let your member of Congress know that you stand with Standing Rock too. Here is an Osage saying we should all do well to remember. When the last tree has been cut down, the last fish caught, the last river poisoned, only then will we realize that we cannot eat money. Thanks for watching. I'm Patricia Hodges with the Progressive Front. Please subscribe to our channel and find us on Facebook.